And now we make a budget. Hey guys, Jim here. Thanks for checking out my channel where we're going to talk about personal finance and your path to financial freedom. And I'm going to cut right to it today. Everybody needs a budget. All the ladies and babies, even the gentlemen, every one of them. What is a budget, you ask? Good question, easy answer. It's a written plan and record of every penny you spend and every penny you make. Why is a budget necessary? Without actually writing out what your financial picture is, you're never going to get towards financial freedom. How could you possibly know how to get where you're going if you don't currently know what's going on? For example, when I turned 27 and I wrote my first budget, I realized just exactly how much money I was completely throwing out the window on things like going out with friends, going to bars, restaurants, things like that. And writing out my budget brought me clarity and it brought me relief. Like Dave Ramsey says, is that when you write out your budget, it actually feels like you got a raise, not the opposite. And with that clarity that you have with your budget, that's how you start making steps towards your financial goals. The clarity that the budget gave my wife and I gave us the direction we needed to paying off $97,000 of mostly student loans. Did I mention that already or not? We're debt free. Now it's giving us the clarity to put our money where we know it needs to go. Towards a house, investing for the future, all the expensive food that my dog Rocco eats. And the budget is giving us the freedom to enjoy our money. Finally, really enjoy it without feeling bad about it. Because we know we're covered on our savings. We know we have an emergency fund. And by the way, to my young married friends, we haven't argued about money at all since we established control over our finances. But you're never gonna get there without a budget, period. So how do you write a budget? It's really a deceptively simple question. So let's go through some of the first steps of how you actually get the budgeting process started. Before we get into that, chances are you know the drill. This is where I'm gonna ask you to please subscribe and like this video. I'm trying to grow this channel to get the message out to as many people as I can that you can achieve financial success. I don't feel like that message is out there enough. I don't feel like there's enough positivity on social media when it comes to money. So I'm bringing forward what's working for me, a 28-year-old debt-free millennial. So you liking and subscribing is helping me grow the channel, helping me get the message out to more people when I bring videos once a week, every week. All right, and with that, let's make some power moves. Step number one is to decide the method that you're going to be using. And when I say the method that you're going to be using, that basically comes down to, are you going to be writing it on paper? Are you going to be making an Excel spreadsheet? Or if you're like me, completely Excel illiterate, are you going to use an app? Personally, as somebody who follows Dave Ramsey's principles, I really like his budgeting app. It's called EveryDollar. Objectively speaking, I just like the layout. I like the interface. I think it's smooth. But I understand it's not for everybody. Some people prefer other apps. We also use mint.com. That's what we use to track our net worth in real time. But I've heard people say great things about using Mint for budgeting. So pick one. Try it out. If you don't like it after a month or two, try a different one. Because ultimately what you do want to do is get yourself coming back and doing it once a day, preferably, if not a couple times a week. Step number two, when you're making your budget, I would suggest just be simple. If it's the middle of the month, start fresh. Start on the new month. And step number three is you're going to want to establish what your base income is each month. If you work a salaried position, you know pretty much exactly what you're going to make each month. Let's say you're an hourly or seasonal employee or somebody who's self-employed. This is probably the moment where you're freaking out. Take it easy. There's a solution. Go back through the year and take whatever month it is that you made the least amount of money, make that your base. So that way you know, at the very least, I should expect this much money coming in. And for those months where we make more, icing on the money cake. Sweet, sweet icing on that delicious cake made of cash. When it comes to a variable income where you don't know exactly what you're going to be making each month, you can use that base level to cover all your absolute necessities. And then after that, when you bring in more money, put that towards whatever your other financial goals are. And we'll get to that later. We're actually going to start tracking our expenses on our brand new downloaded budgeting app. In this case, we're using EveryDollar. No. Rocco, get... So step number 4 is to actually start writing out your expenses. Now is the time you want to go through your newly downloaded app or Excel spreadsheet and actually start getting to work on laying out what it is that you consistently spend each month and what it is that you think you may spend each month. When it comes to actually setting up what it is that you're going to be spending, that comes down to what are your goals? What have you agreed on maybe with the loved one in your life? If you haven't yet, watch my video 5 financial goals for 2021, where you can actually see what some attainable goals are for the year. Maybe your goal this year is paying off debt. Maybe you want to build up your emergency fund. Whatever that goal is though, that's going to kind of help guide you in setting up where your extra money from your budget goes. For example, as you can see, you start off at the top by lining up your income. And I'm basing this off completely a $60,000 a year income. Roughly, you're taking home about $3,500 a month. As you start going down the categories, you'll see the first one is giving. One of my suggestions for your financial goals this year was to actually budget some money to give. Doesn't have to be much, 20 bucks, 30 bucks, 100 bucks, because I think that's really, really good for you. I think it kind of brings you back around and it reminds you that money is just a tool. And then you keep scrolling down and you see maybe one of the most important sections. Now this one is on my account, so you can see that my emergency fund is already loaded in. That's roughly 4 months of our household expenses. And you want to have 3 to 6 months of your household expenses set aside for an emergency, which, let's be real, can happen at any moment, like a pandemic. Then let's say part of your 15% of your retirement is a Roth IRA. So you have $350 going there, and you have financial goals like buying a house, buying a new car, and you put roughly $500 there. Then scrolling down here, you see rent, which I based off of living with one roommate in Pittsburgh, where the average rent is about $1,200, because that's where I am. Go Steelers. So these are your every month expenses that you're gonna have. Your rent and then some utilities. That's something that's not gonna change. The only thing that might change there is how much you spend on the utilities each month. And we'll do a separate video on how to, Rocco. Scrolling down, same thing with transportation. You'll find at the end of the month, if you budgeted for $200, maybe you spent $205 on gasoline, or maybe you spend $195, and then you just take whatever money is left and you move it elsewhere. But again, so far, these are things that are pretty reliable, things that you are fairly certain you're gonna have to deal with each month. Then comes the food category. Gotta be honest, this is where I am the weakest. My wife and I, we love spending money on good food. We love eating well. We know that it's good for us. What's the use of having a bunch of cash one day if you're not healthy enough to enjoy it? Let's say you budget yourself for about $500 worth of groceries, and eating out or ordering in, depending on what you're feeling, $150, and then about, let's say, 20 bucks for a case of beer once a month, something like that. Now that category and the next couple ones are kind of in flux month to month. Depends on whether you're having a really good time or whether you're sitting inside not doing much of anything. If you have too many things in the category of personal, chances are you're throwing a lot of your money out the window. And I will make a note, by the way, that this just happens to be where I put these items like Netflix and Spotify. I don't know if that's where you'd put it on yours under personal. Maybe you'd put it under lifestyle, but that happens to be where I put mine. You have a Netflix subscription that you share with some people maybe. You have a Spotify subscription, internet, cell phone, and if you have a beloved dog named Rocco, come here. And if you have a beloved dog named Rocco, maybe you save about 80 bucks a month, at least towards food or maybe towards a fund in case he has some sort of emergency, because he eats a lot of things around the house. Then the next one, your lifestyle section, going out, and maybe some money you set aside for a vacation. And of course down here, renter's insurance, auto insurance. I used rough estimates there. Yours may be more, maybe less. Here's the most important thing that you'll notice on this particular budget. There's nothing in the debt category. Nothing. Credit cards, 0. Student loans, 0. Car loan, especially 0. Also, you'll see there's no car lease in there or personal loans. And with the budget that we've lined up here, you see we have $36 extra that month. Let's say my goal is towards a house. I'm gonna go right back up and just add it in. And just like that, you have what this app calls the EveryDollar budget, what's known in the financial community as a zero-based budget. Zero-based meaning every single penny has allocation somewhere. Let's say your goal is to get out of debt. That means you're probably not saving for a house, and maybe you're not investing for your future momentarily, just for a little bit. You'd be taking that money and you'd be putting it towards your debts. And chances are, if you're really devoted to it, the income category has grown, maybe with a side hustle of some kind, like dog sitting. I may need a dog sitter. Rocco, get away from the Christmas tree. Come here. After you've paid off your debts and just taken control of your money, and maybe you've built up your 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund, this is the tool that you're going to use to start actually dreaming, whether that's just you, whether that's you and your significant other. That's when you start making those lofty goals, getting a home and becoming a millionaire. Step number 5 when it comes to budgeting, you have to stick to it. Gotta be honest, this is where I struggle the most. I can write a budget no problem, but actually sticking to it is where I fall behind. I am a spender. My wife is the saver, I am the spender. I love spending money, I always have. Since I was young, it's why I had a drive to work. I've always worked a couple jobs at a time just because I like it. I like the money coming in. I like having something in my pocket. And with that in mind, being real with myself, we budget accordingly and we give ourselves a little bit of grace. So that one month, if I go a little overboard, let's say on the food budget, maybe we tap into the vacation budget, or maybe we tap into something else, the Rocco budget perhaps. And if you have to do this for the sake of sticking to budgeting, that's a good idea. But here's what you can't do. You can't put your financial goals long and short term at risk because you have compulsory spending habits. So if we go overboard in one area and have to dip into some cash that we maybe had saved for something else, that's not a problem unless we start messing with the 15% we're putting towards our retirement one day and the money that we want to put towards buying a house in a couple years. Give yourself grace when you have to, otherwise you're going to get completely discouraged, but don't do so at the risk of completely derailing yourself financially. If you want a new computer, you want a new car, plan ahead, save up for a couple months so that you actually have that money and then you don't have to, break into your emergency fund, which should really truly only be saved for emergencies. And as long as we don't mess with the 25 to 30% of our after-tax income that we're putting towards savings, we go overboard a little sometimes on things, and that's okay because we can see on paper, thanks to having a budget, that we can afford to do so, that we can afford to eat a little healthier, which comes with a price tag, that we can afford to rent a movie on the cable, on the whatever cable it is that I have. And most importantly, we're not paying $1,000 a month to debt like we were less than 2 years ago. Having that money back in our pockets makes budgeting a lot more fun. And I will make another video, by the way, to show you the exact percentages of where we allocate our money. And step number 6 when it comes to budgeting is you gotta make it a habit. Whether you're checking it once a day, twice a week, 3 times a week, that's gonna help you set up some very good financial habits of keeping an eye on what's going on with your money. And on a personal note, it'll help you keep an eye on the security of your money. I check my budget once a day or once every other day just to put things where they need to be, put whatever we spend into whatever category it should be in. But because of this, I noticed one day that, somebody stole $500 from our bank account, which happens, but you gotta keep an eye on it, otherwise you're out $500 for longer than you should be. Ultimately, if we could leave this video with one message that you remember, that's going to be, you need a budget, but ultimately you just gotta kind of jump into it. If you don't have a budget, really, you don't have anything to lose. Actually, you have a lot to lose, a lot of money to lose if you don't have a budget. So really, you can't afford to not have a budget. So just get started, grab an app, start an Excel spreadsheet, whatever you have to do, just dive in. Let me know how it goes in the comments down below, or let me know how budgeting has been going for you, or maybe what some of your questions would be about budgeting. And don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel, we'll get these messages out to more and more people. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.